I don't know how many times I've come across atheists who say that even though our universe is meaningless, one can still lead a meaningful life. Statements such as these sound nice for sure, but sounding nice is not quite the same thing as making sense.
Oof, how did he not just totally hear himself there? Then again, he probably thinks his religion makes perfect sense and doesn't see the irony. Either way, let's do this. Greetings fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. One thing I've never really covered on my channel is meaning. I'm usually debunking claims of God's existence, but existential crises are an unfortunate part of life, and so is how we deal with them. During times of ennui or disaster, people will often search for, well, something. That's part of the problem. As much as this guy is going to go on about your life having meaning, the one thing he never does is define meaning. How does a life with meaning look different from one without?
And since atheists usually take pride in their alleged commitment to rationality, a fishy statement such as, "There is no objective meaning to the universe, but you can still create your own meaning," certainly deserves some scrutinizing. That's exactly what this video is about, and what you'll learn by the end of it is that any atheist talk about creating your own meaning in an otherwise meaningless universe is nothing but a grandiose exercise in self-deception.
You see it coming, don't you?
So let's start with a simple observation. Generally speaking, on atheism, the natural world is all there is. Reality is ultimately made up of matter, and everything you see can be broken down into the particles of physics.
Theists are never gonna get this right, are they? Atheism is one thing: lack of belief in any gods. A person could be the most magic-believing, science-denying, mouth-breathing chucklehead with a tinfoil hat on, and as long as the number of gods they believe in is 0, they qualify as an atheist. There is no such thing as according to atheism, because the only statement inherent in atheism is that all those people who believe in God, atheists aren't one of them. That's it. I don't know whether it's ignorance or straw man or both when they do this, but either way, it doesn't help debate or understanding.
Well, okay, unlike a brick stone, you're at least a living organism made up of cells with the ability to reproduce, but don't ever think that you're somehow special.
Somehow special? Yet another undefined nebulous term. What does it mean to be special? And elephant in the room, what we're seeing here is a fragile ego. I could just as easily accuse him of hubris as he tries to make atheists look heartless. Last I checked, pride is one of the bigger sins for Christians, so it should probably not matter in the least whether one's own self is special. And if everybody is special, then special is normal, and thus not special. The more one goes down this rabbit hole, the less sense his position makes.
But now comes the not-so-subtle atheist sleight of hand. Because instead of actually being consistent and affirming that the meaninglessness of the universe necessarily implies the meaninglessness of his or her own existence, the atheist now simply turns around and claims that you can nevertheless create your own subjective meaning.
Yes, subjective meaning, localized micro-scale meaning. Can meaning only be objective, only imposed from without? And again, what is meaning? Let's see whether he gives us a clue.
You may rally, for example, for some cause of social justice, devote yourself to animal rights, donate to the Richard Dawkins Foundation, or simply enjoy yourself and eat ice cream while sunbathing at the beach. Whatever you pick, it will provide you with an island of meaning in the vast ocean of our universe's meaninglessness.
So meaning is whatever gives us purpose or happiness? So meaning is about feelings then? Or is it something else? And I'm not asking to be snide or even necessarily to challenge him with Socratic interrogation. I really don't know what it means for a life to have meaning. Or maybe I do know, but because it's such a personal and subjective thing that varies from person to person and even varies at different different times in a person's life, it cannot be quantified or codified. It's certainly not objective. But I want him to define it for us, because I don't want to intentionally strawman his position. The thing is, I suspect we're in I'll know it when I see it territory here.
As I said in the beginning, while this may sound beautiful, it's not only rationally inconsistent to the highest degree, but also a ridiculous form of self-deception. Because if the material universe is all there is, the notion that you can actually create meaning, which is of course an immaterial concept, makes as much sense as to think that you can throw a bucket into a dried up well to pull water from it.
He says meaning is an immaterial concept, which is why it's absurd to think we can create it. But humans have created immaterial concepts before. We do it all the time. From laws and rules to methodologies, even art is an immaterial concept until we use materials or even our own bodies to represent it in a tangible form others can experience. So what makes meaning so special that it cannot be created?
In addition, even if you could magically create meaning in a materialistic and objectively meaningless universe, this subjectively created meaning of yours would be entirely pointless. For if ultimately nothing matters, then whatever you contrive to be your purpose won't matter either at the end of the day.
So meaning has to last beyond ourselves to be meaning at all. Why? He says this as if it's axiomatic, taking it for granted, but he doesn't justify it, demonstrate it, or prove it. To hear theists tell it, there is some ultimate purpose of which we're a part, some never described God's plan. As often as not, we're told that our purpose and meaning are to give glory to God, an eternity of worship. But what if that's not a meaning I want? Do I have no choice in the matter? And how is that meaningful, stroking the ego of a God who never gives anybody the time of day? Why can't I create my own meaning? And why isn't it meaning if it doesn't last? I won't last either. None of us will. Can you not be content with what you do in your short life? Must it be part of some grand plan in which you are only a pawn?
Let me illustrate this. Imagine we lived in a world in which healthy food does not exist, but everything we take in would cause us to become sick. Now, in such a world, you are of course free to talk about creating for yourself a healthy diet. But that would not change the fact that whatever so-called diet you pick, it will make you sick, just like any other food you could take in. In the same way, to say that the universe is ultimately meaningless, but that you can still pick some cute little diet of meaning for yourself is nothing short of delusional.
First of all, the food analogy is obviously biased. You couldn't choose an example that wasn't a because it's bad for you scenario. And like I said, he seems to think that the only meaning that really is meaning is ultimate meaning, whatever that means. He still doesn't define it or tell us what that would look like, but either way, this is clearly a no true Scotsman fallacy.
By the way, you don't have to take my word for it. Check out Friedrich Nietzsche or Jean-Paul Sartre, who are two of history's most important atheist philosophers.
They do love treating a prominent, outspoken atheist as some sort of authority, as if what those people say becomes law. But atheism is not an organization like a church, and atheists don't all believe the same things. We only don't believe in one thing. And if a person who doesn't believe in God says something douchey, we're just as likely to tell them to stuff it as theists are. Believe me. I know. I stayed largely out of the conflict that arose last year. You all know the one I mean. Where atheists were landing on each other like anvils because someone thought someone else was talking crapola. And it wasn't even about religion. So we're just gonna skip the part where he tries to make an argument from authority for atheists, because it won't advance the conversation in the least.
If objective meaning doesn't exist, how come...
Wait a minute. Let's hear that again.
If objective meaning doesn't exist...
So now it's objective meaning, is it?
Objective meaning.
But how can meaning even be objective? Is meaning not an evaluation or purpose? And how is either one of those not a subjective thought, decision, or perception on the part of an individual?
See, the sentence, "there is no objective meaning to the universe," is itself a statement that claims to carry objective meaning, and yet the proposition is that the universe is devoid of such meaning.
Well, that's just the foul spawn of an illogical mating between a straw man and an equivocation demon. The statement that there is no objective meaning to the universe does not imply the existence of any kind of meaning, and is not a meaning unto itself. That's just incorrect. He might as well have said that the statement "there are no apples on Mars" means that the statement itself is a Martian apple. It just doesn't work that way.
Christianity, on the other hand, can coherently affirm meaning as it postulates a divine mind who has infused the entire universe as well as human existence with meaning and value.
And it doesn't work that way either. A statement like his cannot survive those two dreadful words, "prove it."
This is why it's not only the more rational option than atheism, but also the one that is more practically relevant and actually livable.
I can't find an argument from practicality logical fallacy, but it ought to be one. Just because something makes someone's life easier doesn't mean it's true. This guy has spent his entire video trying to claim that atheists are deluding themselves, but it seems to me the delusion goes in the other direction. He's basically just said that making you feel better about yourself is justification for believing fantasies.
Now, this intuition of ours that our lives are actually meaningful is fully expected and no surprise on the assumption that Christianity is true.
Reality doesn't give a toss about your intuition. And that's really all I need to say about that.
However, if we assume atheism to be true, the very fact that we talk about meaning cannot be explained, but it can only be explained away.
He only said objective meaning once, but who says that when we talk about meaning, that's the meaning we mean? He acts like subjective or transitory meaning isn't good enough, or isn't real meaning, or something. It's not very clear, and that's a huge part of the problem with his argument.
But hey, then again, rational explanations have never been a strength of atheists in the first place.
Coming from someone whose entire belief system is built on faith, hearing him try to claim atheists aren't rational is, well, ironic. Well, that's that video in the can. Now on to a little channel business. I have a bunch of stuff to unbox. People have been kind of emptying out my Amazon wishlist to the point where I can't even think of anything new to add. Certainly not anything with a realistic price tag anyway. The pile has been sitting here for a week, but I wanted to make a proper video first so folks who've subscribed get their money's worth out of their click. Perhaps a live stream unboxing later. Maybe I can even convince a few folks to stop by as guests. We'll see. And it took me so long to make a proper video because I've dived headfirst into my current animation project and I just didn't wanna. I'm only doing it now because sometimes you see a video that's just screaming for a response. But either way, until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. Howdy not? Oof. I've been away too long. A person could be the most magic-believing, science-denying. So now it's objective meaning, is it?
Attention citizens. Failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens. Failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens.
Droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when their videos aren't rated. Bionic dances are known to do that.